So whenever you're
Sorry, y'all. That was just greetings, everybody. Welcome to our artist panel. I'm super excited to introduce our wonderful juror and our amazing artists who are part of our first show of 2024, Mine, Yours, Ours, Kitchen and Familial Stories, on exhibition from January 20th to February 17th, 2024. Today, we have joining us an onslaught of amazing artists from Victoria Gersen, Ting Zhou, Idil Duman, Mildred Mercado, Jin Lao, Alicia Staples, and Yumi Erica Fukuda. And of course, our wonderful juror, Archana Shekara. Archana had to take the long drive, the 2-hour drive from Central Illinois to help bring this show together at Woman Made Gallery. And when I was thinking about how I can introduce this show, how I can introduce Archana, I just was drawn to the quote from her original call for art. So I want to take the time to read that. People who migrate carry with them remembrances of both joy and life's burdens. Many have felt grief and resistance at leaving their homelands. Others have left willingly with dreams and hopes for freedom, safety, and bread. However, the new land originally belonged to someone else. It had been stolen from its original inhabitants, and generations of cultures were erased due to genocide. With gratitude and compassion to the original inhabitants, we now call this land home. And in this current climate, from Palestine to Yemen, from all corners of the globe, we take special focus in diaspora and culture, but we often find so much comfort in food. So our kitchens tell a unique story, and I'm excited that Archana brought this to us. And as qualified and as long as her resume goes, from her teaching at the university level to her personal work. I want to give Archana to introduce herself in her own words and start to kick this artist panel off. Take it away, Archana.
Thank you so much, Marissa. I really appreciate this warm welcome and all of the artists who have joined us today. So I'd like to share my screen, please. And can everybody see? Thank you. So hello and namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining Kitchen Stories, Artist, Designer, and Juror Conversations as a part of Mine, Yours, Ours exhibition at Women Made Gallery. So the exhibition looks incredibly powerful with works from 30 artists and designers. And thanks for everyone for their submissions. I mean, I'm very, very grateful that people took it so seriously and wanted to participate. I really am appreciative of each one of you. So we gather to share what's mine. With you, the food becomes ours, nourishment for our hearts. We connect and we belong. Our kitchens tell our unique story, the way we eat, the ingredients we buy, the utensils we use, the foods we cook and serve, and the familiarity of tastes are influenced by our ancestral cultural roots and amalgamated identities. Food is an expression of our cultural experiences and emotions. It brings people together during joyful celebrations or sorrowful moments. Food binds us socially and helps us build community and foster a sense of belonging. It is a catalyst for creating cross-cultural awareness, understanding, appreciation, and respect. Food is the first level of digesting another culture. And Marissa, thank you so much for talking about what it meant for me to bring all of the cultural groups together and how can we be grateful to all of the indigenous communities who have lived on this land that we now call ours and our home. We seek to acknowledge the colonial injustices and racial exploitations as we explore uncharted territories. We embrace, adopt, adapt, and adjust to cultural climatic shifts, barriers, and expectations. Many communities choose to acculturate by preserving their ancestral heritage, native language, familial values, and traditions, while others may take refuge in cultural denouncement and assimilate. Our cultural roots connect us with our histories, which could be comforting or horrid, glorified or marginalized, celebrated or stereotyped. Our cultural experiences are bound with communities and our home, preserved in our memories, and passed down as seeds for generations to reap. The way we eat, the ingredients we buy, the utensils we use, the foods we cook and serve, the familiarity of tastes are influenced by our ancestral cultural roots and amalgamated identities. So we have invited 7 artists and designers to have deeper conversations about their cultural experiences, inspirations, memories, kitchen stories that they have explored through their work. I'm looking forward to creating a virtual space of cultural awareness, cross-cultural exchange, so we can come together, nurture new understandings of acceptance and respect as our shared purpose. So I'm honored to introduce our 7 amazing participants, and I'll stop sharing my screen so we can see our beautiful participants. Idil Duman is a interdisciplinary artist and designer from Turkey based in Chicago. Their work is situated at the intersection of ethnography, functionality, and industrial design. So thank you, Idil, for joining. Yumi Erica Fukuda is from Japan and is based in Chicago, whose installations, performances, and objects based are on culture and on life of Japanese immigrants who migrate to Brazil from the 1900s. Thank you so much, Yumi, for joining. Victoria Gersen is a designer, researcher, and educator from Miami, Florida. She has a Brazilian heritage and comes from a line of teachers who inspired her to become an educator and teaches graphic design at the University of Florida. She uses collage to respond to socio-political issues within the classroom as a personal practice. Her work and research explore localized techniques, traditions, and cultural heritage. Thank you, Victoria, for joining. Jen Lau is Chinese-American artist based in Chicago. Her work explores the interplay between time and memory. Over the years, she has investigated this theme through several lenses, such as city life and the human figure, and family histories and the immigrant experience. Thank you, Jen, for joining. Mildred Mercado is Puerto Rican mixed media artist and born and raised on the south side of Chicago. Her art reflects her experiences, emotions, and beliefs and how she interprets them. The themes in her artwork deal with life, our burdens, and how we carry them. Thank you, Mildred, for joining. Alicia Staples is a mixed media artist, fashion design, illustrator in Illinois. She's a self-taught artist whose artwork is influenced by telling stories about her life experiences and empowering women and children. Thank you, Alicia, for joining. Ting Zhou is an assistant professor of web and interactive media design at the University of Connecticut, where her research focuses on UI/UX design in healthcare, digital media innovation, and design thinking, health communication, and design for social justice and human rights. Thank you, Ting, for joining. Finally, I'm Archana Shekara, an Indian-American artist and designer, professor of graphic design, creative director of Design Streak Studio at Illinois State University. I use design as a tool to build cross-cultural understanding, acceptance, and respect. As a sociocultural researcher, I have been investigating my transnational identity by understanding racial equity and decoloniality through a brown cultural lens and creating critical awareness using ethnographic narratives. So we are all amazing folks, I guess. So we are all here. And again, thank you so much. So I have my first question. Um, so before I ask and open it up to my first question, Marissa, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still there.
Thank you. Marissa, I have a question for you
Mhm.
because you represent Women's Made Gallery. What was the need to have this exhibition? Even though you said it in your opening, what was the need for Women's Made Gallery to host this exhibition during this time in history? So why?
I feel like our why, of course, a wonderful proposal from you, but also what Women Made tries to do and are advocating for women and non-binary folks in the gallery and art spaces. We often hint on stories that connect us to lived experiences, often explicitly or culturally felt by women, but also is experienced by anyone. And also with the cross-cultural connections, we feel that being able to connect themes of domesticity, food, comfort, but also our personal stories, being in a city like Chicago, where we are a city of neighborhoods, of too many cultures to name. And I think that at this current time with Chicago experiencing a migrant crisis of its own and us trying to take care of our own communities and as well as advocating for communities abroad. The show kind of hints on so many different things that are going on within the gallery, personally, politically, that's going on in the world. So it really just, in getting this together, everything outside in the world just kept connecting us back to the story of our unique food stories.
Thank you so much, Marissa. That was really, you just you just hit the nail, right? You just said it all right and gave us this wonderful platform to connect with each other. And everybody's joining from various different places. Most of them are from Chicago, but then we do have Victoria joining from Florida and then Ting from Connecticut. And then otherwise, I'm from Central Illinois, just 2 hours away, but most of the folks are all in Chicago. So again, thank you so much for spending this wonderful afternoon with us. My first question would be, I would love to hear about your kitchen story, your thoughts about your work, and what inspired you to create this piece. And all of you have your wonderful pieces in the background, so it's easy for the audience to kind of see what you have done. So maybe I will start with Victoria.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess I'll just start by saying I think I've always used collage and photography and kind of collected archival pieces as a way to process and explore my own background and heritage and themes of family and food. There's definitely been a lot of themes of food in my work that's really originally influenced by my mom, who is an immigrant from Brazil and brought, her foods with her. And so I'm really interested in food as like a cultural heritage and a cultural legacy. And it's a way for me to understand like my mom better, to understand my culture better. And so the pieces that I made, I have one as my background here, but two of the pieces that I made in the show are specifically about a dish called moqueca capixaba, which is a fish stew. So moqueca is the name of the fish stew. And capixaba is like the word for someone who is from the state of Espírito Santo, which is in the southeast of Brazil, where all of my family lives. And something, other than the dish being really amazing, and it's a fish stew because it's a coastal region, but you can kind of see in this image that they're cooked in these clay pots. And so I started to kind of look into and research the history of the food and the pots. And I learned that they're actually only made in this very specific neighborhood right next to where my grandma lived. So it's like a very hyper local practice, but they're all handmade pots by the artisans. And they use this like environmentally sustainable process that is actually an indigenous technique that's been passed down for like 300 to 400 years from generation to generation. So this is kind of a food that I grew up eating, but I didn't know this kind of really rich and deep history until I started looking into it. And so, yeah, here I'm kind of again using collage and photo documentation and design to explore this history and create some new visual narratives around it. And yeah, maybe just to wrap up, this image in particular is like showcasing the process of my mom cooking. I'm like, let me see if I can get out of the way here. Cooking the dish so that, starting from the empty, the beginning, putting in the fish, the other pieces of the food, the vegetables, and what it looks like at the end. And in the background are some photos of some of the coverings of the pots from the actual location where these artisans are making them. So yeah, I hope that gave a good background on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victoria. How about Ting?
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to join this exhibition because Archana know me for in the past 4 years. I think I'm focused on design for healthcare and didn't really make too many artistic work. But this piece starts it's kind of like a means transition in my life because when my daughter was 4 months old, I decided to send her to the full-time daycare. Before that, I was a stay-at-home mother. So that means my daughter never she definitely has certain a social connection, but not too much. Most of the time, just stay at home with me. And the same to me, rely on each other. So when I send her to the daycare, because it's a daycare on my campus institute, so we should prepare a lunchbox for her. I was kind of nervous because that means I can't fully own her 24 hours per day. And she needs to have a new friends, get used to new teachers, new environments. So then every day I prepare lunchbox for her, and when she came back home, I need to check how much she ate. And I found this kind of be like an everyday routine. From those days, I was thinking to get my second MFA degree in conceptual photography. So I said, oh, this is a good opportunity to document her work. Her lunchbox. And also for me, it's kind of like to think about the connection or reconnection between us. Because for me, kitchen as an immigrant woman is a place I feel very safe. Because when I came to here, actually, my first station is in Chicago. So I remember when I homestay with two old couple in Evanston, I need to cook for my husband and myself as kind of like a fusion because they are Americans. I'm Chinese. We are Chinese, so we cook different food. So food to me is then those days I don't know what could I do for my future. Even I was got can go to SAIC get my master degree, but I still feel where is my future? And then after stay at home for 3 years, it's kind of, hey, where is your career path? So this work is really means transition to me and help me to think about the value of family, children, to me, think about as an immigrant woman. Yes, we have the second home in this new land. We have our next generation in this country, but we still need to figure out our new like identity in this country and a new like a career path. So I really appreciate this opportunity. Now, even I have full-time job because those days when my daughter went to school, I also went back to school to like improve my English, get ready for teaching. So went back to see 6 years, changed so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ting. That was great story, both Victoria and Ting. Uh, can we go to Mildred now?
Hello. And teen, actually, I was raising children, so I was out of the art world for like 10, 15 years. It's a long time. It's just a lot changes. A lot changes. I went from everything was just photographed to now everything is digital. It's a lot of change. But anyway, thank you for having me. My name is Mildred Mercado. Um My painting is making pasteles with mommy, which is about me making pasteles with my mother. Every Christmas or before Thanksgiving to through Christmas, we make pasteles, which are a plantain dish, a savory plantain dish from Puerto Rico. A lot of different Caribbean islands have it, a lot of cultures, but it's just named different and different names for it. But it's plantain, and it's made with usually we use pork or chicken as a filling. This year, my mom made vegetable for vegans, so that's big. It's big culturally because she's adding that into, her I'm so sorry, I'm nervous, so but it's important to me because the kitchen is such an important part of our families, our cultures. It doesn't matter what your cultural background is. Food is a really important part of how we communicate, especially women. We spend a lot of time in the kitchen. Let's just face it. And when we're raised, sometimes, I don't know about everyone else, but for Hispanics, like we're pretty much raised in the kitchen. We're making coffee when we're like 9 for the whole family. Our grandmothers are showing us how to cook already. um my mom worked a lot when I was younger, so I had to learn to cook really young, and I was a chef for 26 years. So I love food. Food brings people together, so I guess that's pretty much what I'm try to um try to express in my art. Not just about food. I like to add in a lot of my cultural background. In the Caribbean, before we were during colonization, when Spain colonized us, there was the African diaspora. There were Taino Indians already lived on the island, and all three of those cultures came together, and through food, through dance, through music, that's how they communicated, because no one spoke the same language, you know. So so yeah, culture is very important. If nothing else, I'd like for you to take away that culture is very important, and it brings people together. Food brings people together, and that's I guess what I wanted to express in my painting, in my print.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mildred. That was really powerful when you said food brings us all together, and then we are always spending time with in our kitchen, and then that's what, like, so you develop these generational recipes with the and then also that closeness with family, right?
And so much of our oral history, where we talk about I didn't mention that. That's the most important part. That's where we learn about our cultures, about our family. You hear your familial stories.
Yeah.
You hear where your food comes from. You learn about the different people in your family, the different the things that they go through in life for us to have the life that we're living now, and still try to hold on to our culture is difficult,
True, true, true. Especially when we come from all different countries, different
backgrounds, yeah,
yeah.
different backgrounds.
And like how Victoria was talking about the clay pot, I mean, the story about, about the pot that you were saying, how important it is to the cuisine. So that was wonderful. And also Ting talking about lunch boxes. I thought when I read your abstract thing, I thought that was like, it reminded me of how it was for me as a mother of two children, trying to pack lunch boxes for my children. And that was so tough. And I was very afraid of like, what will the classmates say to them? And what is their food going to be considered yuck? Right. So will it be accepted? So I would be very conscious about making peanut butter jelly for a while. And then since we were vegetarians, but then slowly I was like, you know what? We're going to talk to the local school board. And then so we did. And from then on, they started introducing vegetarian lunch. Otherwise, until then, our school board system did not have any vegetarian lunch options at all. So until we made the move, and I'm glad that even now, after about 20 some years, it's still going. So it's wonderful. How about Idil?
I'm actually really glad to be going after Ting and Mildred, because I think the way sorry if you heard that there's some noise coming in, but I think the way the sentiment of this work sparked in the process is my connection to my mother and my uncertain times with my non-immigrant visa ending and not knowing where I'm going, and having to become painfully independent from my family in the time of in a time where they cannot simply help me, and it is this weird time in mid-20s where you are starting to see your parents as people and not these enigmas anymore. And that was one of the first times that I held a work in like such precious manner. I have a designer background, so normally I create work to be changed at least 20 times after making it for the first time. But this was the first time that I was using existing designs and these like coffee pack designs. There is a graphic design that's 150 years old, very iconic, and also the iconic coffee pot design as documentation. And what happened is, and the little writing is what I see as a part of my work. While I was still in undergrad, around 2020 or 2021, my mom packed all of these and more packs into my already overweight luggage when I was leaving Turkey, and also the pot, and also another electrical Turkish coffee pot, which I actually use. And she said, "Don't waste money on Starbucks over there." And I'm actually now having fun realizing how that connotates to the current boycott, which was not my intention, but also something I wonder if people thought about. But basically, after spending this, like before I was leaving and before this "don't waste money on Starbucks" incident took place, I was living with my family during COVID, and my mom, it would be a morning or an afternoon or a late afternoon, and she would say, "I'm making coffee for myself. Would you like some?" And alongside of caffeine addiction, that was one of the kitchen culture that passed on to me from her. And most of the packets going expired made me wonder if this is my disconnect from culture and using espresso pods instead. No matter how much I enjoy this coffee. And I used the coffee to dye this little piece of wood, playing with how I can insert function and remove function from these objects. Giving them a function of document, a story teller position to them, but also putting them on the wall and rendering it into artwork. And I really enjoy objects made to function becoming exhibited on the wall or being used as they were meant to. But that is my turbulent emotional story behind this work. And I am really glad that this open call came at a time where I was relying on my joy of finding cultural food and making cultural food as a form of perseverance.
Thank you for sharing your strong story, Idil. Your installation might look very simple with packets of coffee that's already branded, and as you said, 150 years ago or so. But then the generational story that you have in terms of bringing it in terms of comfort, right? And then most of us come from different countries as well. And then all of us have carried something or the other to thinking that maybe I might not find in the United States. So let me bring our cultural foods or whatever that is, like you brought your pot and then your coffee. So, and then carrying along with us that the thing that binds us back to our own heritage, right? As whether it's an instrument or whether it's like a food or even as simple as a recipe that mom wrote, right? And all those feel so special and strong. So thank you so much for sharing. Because I remember bringing my garam masala as well, thinking that in the America, whether I'm going to find it or not. Of course, when I say America, I mean the United States, whether I will find them or not. And now we can find most of them, but not all of them.
Also,
Thank
it's
you.
more expensive here sometimes, depending on what
That's,
it is.
that's true. That's why mom said no Starbucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Idil. How about Jen?
Hi. Thank you for letting me participate in this very special exhibit. Actually, it's a pretty recent development for me to start incorporating food in my work. And also, this is the very first time I've ventured into ceramics as a medium. So about last year, it's been a few years actually, I started really thinking a lot about incorporating cultural histories into my work pretty much when my grandmother passed away. So she had been a really big part of raising myself and my brother when we were growing up. And I was born here, but my parents were immigrants and they brought her to help take care of us in like the 70s. Was when she came over first, but she never learned how to speak English and she never learned how to drive. And she like kind of brought along all of her knowledge from living in China and Taiwan, and she would cook for us. And there were a lot of things that I felt like, okay, well, food is the connector that we had to our ancestors, but also to our culture and how my family says, I love you. Yeah, maybe they won't say it out loud, but you know, you prepare a delicious hot meal and it's just how how I know. And last year, I actually curated a show called Have You Eaten that had a very similar idea of just like being able to convey cultural love through food. And with this piece, which let me scooch out the way here, is an altar that is both a celebration, but also a little bit of a piece of mourning for my grandmother. She taught me how to make dumplings when I was very young. And it was pretty easy to make them out of ceramics because you just make them like you would normally. And I chose a glaze that was a crackle glaze so that it was conveying the sense of like generational knowledge being passed down, something that was older, something that was antique. And I wanted it to be kind of a portal, like altars in general tend to be a portal between the human world and the spirit world. So this was a way for me to kind of thank my grandmother and the ancestors before her for all of this knowledge, but also a way to like send my respects back to her for giving me that knowledge. And dumplings themselves are kind of shaped in the shape of an ingot, which is like a gold, ingot that is created. They make paper ones that you burn to pay your respects at these altars, and so I thought that that was a nice connector. And then I also did incorporate paper ancestral money that is burned, but I was just it was just a way for me to connect with my grandmother after she passed away. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jen. I mean, like as we were discussing and talking as our colleagues were presenting, when you said that this is the way I pay respect or that show my love to my grandmother, and then I created this piece, and first time working in ceramics. Your piece is beautiful, by the way, and it looks gorgeous in the gallery, and nobody will know until you say that this is your first time doing something in ceramics. It's really gorgeous. And then the whole altar setup that you have done in the gallery, as people walk in, yours is one of the first pieces people see right in as they walk into the gallery. And I think it's nice to kind of bring in that kind of respect and with that installation. So thank you so much. And I think we all agree about food being our way of showing love to family or to love to our guests, and food being the love language. And back home, it's like if you want to win over someone, give them great food, and then they'll fall in love with you. Right. So thank you so much, Jen. Alicia?
Hello. I'm very happy to be a part of this exhibition and having this opportunity to do this interview. Um, I have to say that as of last year, I recently started diving back into like doing art. I'd stopped for a while. I had my daughter, like all my focus was mainly on her, kind of similar to like Mildred and some of the other ladies. So my focus was on her for a while. Then I got her to a certain point. My daughter's 20 now. I'm like, okay, now it's time to start focusing back on myself, do what I want to do for a change. I've always been very creative and been able to draw. And so like I had a conversation with my cousin and I was like, I really want to get back into my art, but I don't know like what, because there's so many different types of art. Because growing up, I wanted to be an artist, but I was told that art wasn't a real career. So that kind of like took me down a different path. I went to school for like pre-law, things like that. And I never was really happy with doing that. So I started like experimenting with like fashion design and also like computer design. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. So now I'm forgetting what I was gonna say. But anyhow, so I had a conversation with my cousin and she was like, well, since you really enjoy like fashion design and then also like, being able to draw characters and doing portraits and things like that, why don't you like combine it, kind of do like mixed media? And I was like, that's sounds like a good idea. So like, well, I'm gonna give that a try because I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. And so I've been like, my focus has been on like showing like life experiences through my art. Like good and bad experiences, like empowering women and children and things, and like being a single parent and all the challenges that us as women go through raising our kids. Um, but then this particular piece that I created, like growing up as a child, I had a sibling, me and my sister, like growing up in our house, like the holidays were always big. My mom came from a large family. And at 9 years old, she was cooking for a family of nine, like her siblings, her mother, and her father. And so she's always been the best cook. So holidays were big in our house growing up. And so everyone would always come over to our house. We'd get all dressed up. My mom would go to Marshall Fields and buy me and my sister these big fancy dresses. So you can see kind of like that's displayed in my artwork. And then like they would come over and like all the women of all ages, all the kids, all the girls, all the kids would be in the kitchen, the women, like the aunts, sisters, just all the women, we'd be in the kitchen cooking and sharing stories and recipes and just conversating while the men be out in the kitchen, out in the living room, doing their thing. But we'd be in there bonding and, just enjoying ourselves. But honestly, I felt like food would bring the family together, especially the holiday time. That was big in my, growing up in my life. Food always brought us together, like barbecues and just any holidays, birthdays would bring everyone together. But it was always the women, in the kitchen and cooking or bringing the dishes and um, yeah, I would say that was the thing that kept our family together. And then like in this particular picture, it's if you can see it, like in the middle is my mother. So I consider her the matriarch of the family. She's older now. And then to the right, that's myself. And then to the left is my daughter. So my mom would pass recipes down to myself and my sister. And then my sister has daughters, and then I just have the one daughter. And so they get in the kitchen with us at holidays and stuff as we got older, we had our kids and learn and taste and, trial and error type things. So I feel like my mom passed down recipes and generations of recipes and stuff to us. So we pass it down to our daughters. And so this is just a display of like growing up in my household, like holidays. And so I got like the plaid on my daughter, and then my mom has the red, kind of try to make her stand out the most. And I have on like a black glittery thing, and I kind of like incorporated like my fashion design stuff. And then like with the acrylic painting and the embellishments, and I experimented with like the gold leaf, which was, I don't know if I'll do that again, but I just had fun with it. And I was, really happy and excited to be a part of this exhibition. But yeah, that's pretty much like growing up in my household and like kitchen stories, things like that. So, you know.
I mean, your piece reminded me of that welcomeness, like when we, especially on that celebration, when we're all together as a family, and then we all dress
Mhm,
up, and then we celebrate
mhm,
an event, and then that special feeling, and then
mhm,
now and then you added saying like I put this gold because, of course, gold is a revered metal back home in India. And then it's a very
mhm,
special metal, and then you see most Indian women wear India like gold jewelry and everything else.
mhm,
But then when I saw the piece with all that gold and then that special clothing, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to
mhm.
talk to this artist because the clothing
Yeah.
just comes alive because you have real
Uh-huh.
stitching going on. So thank you
Mhm.
for sharing. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
And Yumi, please.
I'm really enjoying everyone's like amazing stories, and I'm appreciating being part of this talk. And my work is, so my art practice is about family history for like over 10 years, and which is about my parents, because they grew up, they are like third generation of Japanese Brazilian, but they kind of moved to Japan, moved back to like ancestor moved like 100 years ago, and then like this my parents moved back to Japan, and then I born and raised in Japan. So it's kind of tricky, but um in in Brazil there's like largest Japanese Brazilian population in São Paulo and some other states. And so most of my relatives are living there. And even I grew up in Japan, like, oh, actually, like that experience makes me like more interested to like to know about my family and how my parents grew up, or how other my grandma grew up, or how's like my cousins are growing up like simultaneously with me. Yeah. And then this work is like especially talking about one of the food called hanaume. So this is like only exist in like Japanese Brazilian like food culture, not exist in Japanese food culture, which is interesting because so when like 100 years ago, when Japanese people moved to Brazil, they want to recreate the food. They were like eating the traditional food called like umeboshi, which is like pickled plum. So they pickled plum. But I think during that time, a lot of immigrants are moved in like countryside, or it was really hard to find the ingredients to make that pickled. So they instead of using plum, they started like finding some similar taste, similar like something that they can recreate. So they use like hibiscus, rosal, and pickle them, which become kind of similar flavor. And I was really I thought that is really amazing that like your memory and your sense of taste is like trying to like recreate the stuff that you are like thinking or you want to eat, but they become like um because of the environment difference or ingredient difference, the result is different, but it still carries some like probably like important part, like their like nostalgia or their like memory of like what they their life before. So um so like I was like researching about it, and so this drawing is I made it like hibiscus tea, like the extract like liquid, and then splash it on the paper. So and then like I put some um things to like change the acidity, which kind of controls the color. So I wanted to make something like not exist forever, like it will changes like the um changes when the time pass, the color fades or something gets like the condition changes. So that's why I made this And it's interesting, I made this like after I moved to Chicago, so I also experienced the environment like moving experience, so probably makes me want to explore more about this experience. Yeah, that's all.
Such a powerful story about migration, right? Migrate and then stay here for like stay in the country for almost a century or so, and then going back to the homeland. That must be, again, migration must have happened due to several reasons. Who knows, right? Political reasons, or right? And then going back and then calling it home, and then you growing up in Japan and then coming here to the United States and then talking about hibiscus tea, right? And then your work was also, I noticed that you had done it on these paper that we usually use for notebooks with the rule lines, and then you added these splashes of tea. Again, it brings back memories for you and also for all of us who are tea drinkers or perhaps coffee drinkers as well, with this decoction and what that means to, like, to simmer, and then we apply that on paper, and then you're talking about how ephemeral this is, and the whole transformative experience that you have, and then the fading away of that, of these beautiful washes that you've created. I think that talks about life itself, I feel. Thank you for sharing your story, Yumi. So for me, I have been exploring and stories and sharing stories through rice, because I find rice as being this one ingredient or grain that has that connects people, several cultures together. So I feel so rice is a staple grain in Asian and also Latin American communities, and I think it's kind of like a form of an expression. So I've been kind of exploring the ritual of making and serving food through narratives based on my cultural identity, my own familial traditions and memory and upbringing, just like how you all have been talking about. And also creating a welcoming space for people to gather, whether they are friends or strangers, around a table and sharing a meal. So what does it mean by sharing a meal together with a group of strangers, and what kind of new friendships come out of it? So I find this space is very organic, very vibrant, and also sacred. I'm a practicing Hindu, and in one of our scriptures, it says, treat guests as God. That becomes your love, and you treat them with respect. So the first you serve the guest as a host, and then you eat. So that's pretty customary. So I've been kind of designing these immersive, participatory, sensory experiences as a designer to seek community by sharing rice at various settings. So for this particular exhibition, for the opening, I hosted this one event called Let's Chat. So it was a social practice design work inviting audiences to eat this churmuri. Churmuri is an Indian street food coming from my home state of Karnataka. So the humble churmuri elicits a myriad of intricate tastes. It's very textural. It's made out of puffed rice. And I think some of you all must have eaten when you came and attended the opening. So it has this the ingredients are very simple, but then the bold colors and uncomplicated ingredients, like I mentioned, it unveils a layer of profound meaning. So it's like it has all these deeper meanings, like where is this carrots that I'm using? Where are they coming from? Where's this coriander leaves that just adds for the garnish? Where does that come from? The chutneys that I make, where did that come from? The dates that I have used to make the chutney, again, where did that come from? So just trying to understand how these various ingredients traveled and how they came to my hometown and became a part of the street food culture seems very powerful for me. So these tastes are discoveries that may feel fresh for some people who have never tried it, and also feel new and sometimes strange too. and then amalgamated, and then foreign, occasionally evoking a sense of alienation. Sometimes it could also be alienating to people. So, but within this unfamiliarity trends the authentic, right? So when we serve our foods, but we serve with authenticity, and it's very original, and it's also novel for some people. So these taste memories binds us together, connecting us with our past, our families, our traditions, and our heritage. So, and each one of you just sharing all of your stories made me also think about me being a mom. I have two children, a 24-year-old and a 26-year-old. My 26-year-old loves to cook, and he brings in his friends, and then they're making all these South Indian food, and he's serving them, and he's super interested. My 24-year-old just knows how to cook whatever she enjoys, and then that's it. And now that she's far away, lives in DC, and doesn't see us as often, now it's more like, Mom, I miss your cooking. What do I do? How do I do? So now I feel like she's come back and wants to learn. Otherwise, it was never like that. It was more like, Mom, I think I like pasta. Mom, I think I like pizza. Oh, Mom, I think so. Those whatever she likes, she had learned to cook. But now she wants to learn all these authentic South Indian recipes because I'm a South Indian, and she wants to learn all of the South Indian recipes because you usually don't get South Indian food in most restaurants in the United States. It's mostly North Indian, and Punjabi food is very popular. So we don't eat Punjabi food all the time. So that's when the kids are like, oh, I want to learn this and everything else. So I have the second question. I'm also looking at time. What would you like our audiences to take away from your work and from your experience? This time I'll ask Mildred to start.
I think I would like just to reiterate that culture is important. You know, it brings us all together. Like you said with the rice. So many of us use rice in different ways. Me and my son were just talking about this. He's 15, so he likes to play around in the kitchen too. And he's always like, we always talk about food, and I tell him that the differences between people or different cultures in their food is just really just what's accessibility, you know. And rice is accessible to a lot of different cultures, so there's a lot of different ways of making it, right? So but yeah, culture is important, and I think that food brings us together. And that's important. I think that's awesome. It's amazing. It brings us together. And there's a lot with so much going on in the world, you know. It's just nice that's something that brings so many different people together without, I mean, who could be mad at food, you know? So
Thank you, Mildred. And you said you're a chef?
I was a chef for 26 years. I have Crohn's disease now, so I'm disabled, but yeah, I was a chef for 26 years.
Oh, wow. Good cook.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
love to cook, but thank you. Thank you.
Alicia, do you want to share?
I would say from this particular piece, I would say maybe like because of like the colors and things, like, you know, the reds and the golds and like the plaids and like the sparkliness, like holidays are big, and coming together with family and being together with family at the holiday time is very important because when most people gather. Um, so that's, you know, like gathering with family and like food and celebrations and things. So that's what I want them to kind of take from when they look at this picture, like, oh, wow, they must have been big on holidays, celebrating and family. I don't know if you can really tell like the difference with each woman that, well, you probably should be able to tell like the plaid is the child, and then in the middle is older woman, and then on the end, maybe like a middle age. I'm still young, but but yeah, that's what I'd want someone to take from looking at this particular picture.
Thank you, Alicia. How about Jen?
Oh, for me, it's definitely the connection between food and family. Even after somebody's passed away, it's just such a like in your face connector of culture and also another thing that I was reminded at the show itself is that every culture has kind of very similar food patterns. They're just cooked differently. So you're going to see dumplings in all different types of cultures and some sort of rice dish, like Mildred was talking about. And, you know, there's always going to be a way to cook a certain type of vegetable or something like that. But, and it's just nice to see that kind of commonality brought together in one space.
Thank you so much, Jen. How about Yumi?
Yeah. Um, in this work particularly, this one of the other like main idea of this work are these are kind of stain, like it is drawing, but it's kind of it could be a stain. And then like when you are in the daily life, like when you are using stuff, things are sometimes like stick on your clothes or like when you're alive, it's getting changes. So that kind of elements I want to kind of I was kind of interested because this is this piece is continuous of daily life, and then especially using like notepad paper, like people, I think when people kind of give some information to others, they use like memo, post-it, notepad. It like number to other people, like name card. It's important information, but you are easily to lose it. I'm the person easily to lose these kind of information. So that kind of like memory or things of condition and like temporality, and it's you want to keep it, but it's hard to keep it, like because it's really happens a lot in daily life, like that kind of imagery I try to reproduce in my work. So if the audience saw this piece and if they feel something familiar with their daily life, it will be nice.
Thank you, Yumi. Victoria, please.
Yeah. So the pieces, my 3 pieces, I put in these kinds of different frames, and I wanted it to really feel like homey, like this could be photos on your wall at home, and that there's like a certain level of intimacy to it, because it is an exploration of home for me. And yeah, I think overall I would just want an audience take away that the kind of richness of the stories and histories that a lot of dishes and foods have, and that the process of cooking and making those foods have. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. How about Ting?
I think from my my work, like I mentioned, it's really goes through the whole like a transition of my life. I have 2 side points I want to like audience can get. First one is like recognition of domestic work. I want people to understand that that's like a domestic work, including cooking, cleaning, caregiving. It's not just like a manual like a labor, but an essential and also valuable contribution to the family and also society. It's often like unpaid because those days I mentioned I was like a stay-at-home mother, so then under like a paid. So it's very important, like cannot be like overstated in maintaining like the households or even like keep the like family well-being. Because once you're being like a working mother, you still needs to, I think there's no book said that a man needs to like balance work and life. Only woman has those books, and also like kind of like tell us you need to balance life and work. And another session points I want to say is like a acknowledgement of like a culture and challenges, because immigrant families often like face challenges as we like get like new culture, new language, and the social normals. Like Archana mentioned, when kids go to school, we are worrying, will they feel our Asian food like it's yucky, the smell is bad? Because I had those experience. My kids, as a for like kindergarten, first grade, they want to bring food to home, and eventually they said, "Mom, I think I can just get the food from school." So I want to like audience to like emphasize the difficulties immigrant women especially we are trying to like preserving our like cultural identity. At the same time, we also need to like adapting the new environment.
I mean, what you're saying is so true in terms of like with our immigrant cultural backgrounds, right? So we are all like, um, how do we even do this with our families? Even like you began think with us when we stay at home and then we are cooking for our families. Maybe there's not much respect with folks who say like, I'm a homemaker. I stay home, I take care of my kids. That value is not as much there unless when you say, oh, I work here, or I work at an institution, or I work at something like, so when anybody goes out of the house to work, so there is so much more respect I have seen in certain cultural communities. Whereas when you are seen as a homemaker, it's not really as respected. So it's like, oh, that's such an easy job to raise kids. But then it's such an easy job to just cook, right? So it's like, so taking it for granted in certain cultural histories and identities seems a little problematic. But thank you for sharing and be like, no, we're all there, we're all in it together, we're all responsible. And not necessarily it should be a woman's uh, job or perspective. I think everybody needs to own that. So thank you for sharing, Ting. Uh, Idil?
I'm definitely thinking a lot about, especially after hearing everyone's explanations, how food on a simple object level is something that's supposed to be perishable, but by turning it into culture and documentation and artwork, it becomes a valuable, long-lasting research and a like a teaching that's going to last for many generations. And I've been thinking a lot about the power that holds. And I think this exhibition portrays that very beautifully.
Thank you so much, Iril. I'll open up for conversations if anybody wants to chat with each other or ask other questions for anyone else. Please feel free to unmute and
Yeah, I didn't really have not like a question, but a comment. I think, we're all kind of talking about, we all talked a lot about like our moms, our grandmas, how things are passed down from generation to generation, and like those really strong connections and bonds. And say what you will about gender dynamics. I think that could be like a whole other conversation that we could have. But I think this exhibition specifically being at Women Made Gallery is very fitting and really important and powerful that we're honoring the women and in our lives who are like, yeah, making these foods and passing down this knowledge. So I just wanted to say thank you, Archana, for finding this venue, because I think there's that kind of double meaning, not just of what the exhibition is about, but again, where it's situated.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Victoria.
I also want to say thank you because now it's very close to Lunar New Year. And I was thinking a lot about when I was in China, how did I cook food with my parents? And I haven't been seeing them for a while. I suddenly realized that it's time to go home this summer. So definitely want to feel like finding time to like visit them. I also very impressed by everyone's story. I think food is love. And now we're using this like using different media to create artwork related to food. I want to say it's more related to love, and also love is the most important thing. I mean, to maintain the relationship, no matter it's parenting or even like a spousal. So this is amazing opportunity. I mean, after these exhibitions, thinking about to make more work, artwork, not besides designing work.
Thank you, Ting. Anyone else would like to share? Yumi, please.
I really enjoyed everyone's like food experience and the whole different like stories, and it makes me think of when I share food with like other people, like the people that I met, like some new people, and then when they kind of decided to like try my food, like try that things that I made, it makes me one of like kind of like it's really nice and like happy experience, and it's some sort of like acceptance is happens, which is like it's interesting, like because your what you make and what your background is kind of like before you are sharing, it's kind of invisible, but then if it's kind of shared, it's more it's big difference between like human interaction. That's what I have felt through the whole like conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Yumi. I mean, I was just talking about visible and invisible, like, because not everybody can see our emotions. And so food is something that's visible, that when we take it to the table or like at a setting, and so that we show our love in a more visible way, and we become pronounced also as a culture through food. So thank you, Yumi. Anyone else to share?
I had a
I
comment on. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mildred.
no, go ahead, Ace. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead first.
I was just gonna say that I really enjoyed everybody's installation. I liked how you mentioned Yumi the pickled plum and how they couldn't find the ingredient, and then they decided to use the hibiscus, which I pretty interesting. I mean, I'm thinking about the flavor. It's pretty interesting. And then Alicia, with your dresses, like you can tell you have your daughter with the little bow, and and then like with the black dress, you can tell that is a younger person because more stylish with the earrings, and so and it's so many different ideas, like with the lunch boxes too, and Idil with your coffee pot. I love it. I just, and then with everything, like with Jen, your installation with I'm so sorry, with the dumplings, that's a pretty good it's just so many different ways that food came together. It's just a wonderful exhibit, and thank you, Archana, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you. That's it.
That's good. Alicia?
Sorry, I just want to say I really enjoyed everyone's stories and how they talked about their backgrounds and how food connected them with families and their histories and things. I do want to like ask a question, like I know growing up in my house, like my mom had certain dishes that no matter what, like she taught me how to cook or whatever, gave me recipes that no matter what, I could never make my food taste like hers. And I had to ask her, why can't I'm following the recipe? Why doesn't this dish ever taste like yours? She said, well, as I got older and start making the dishes different every time, I started making according to my taste buds. So I might add a little bit extra of this, less of that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So let me make me a personalized dish that everyone would want, because sometimes I feel like, my daughter would make comments like, that doesn't taste like, call my mother nanny. Like all the grandkids call her nanny. They don't call her grandma. But it don't taste like nanny's like, excuse me, what do you mean it don't taste like hers? Bought the recipe. So now I have my certain dishes that she enjoys, and then also like dishes that my mother makes. So do any of you ladies ever find that like you can never make a replica of somebody else's dish even if you follow the recipe to the T?
Mhm.
Yes, definitely. I have this one dish that I make often. It's like a vinaigrette. It's kind of like a salsa, Brazilian salsa. And I always say that I'm like, it does not come out the same way that my mom seasons it. I try to do the same thing, but either way, I still make it anyways, even if it doesn't come out the same. But I think that kind of speaks to maybe some of the things we talked about too, like how things change over time. I think especially about what Yumi was talking about, kind of like the permanence and ephemerality, both kind of working together. Yeah.
And then we say it's all in the hand of when people are doing. And when I'm cooking, I never taste my food. So it's just through perception. And then whether I'm cooking for 10 people or 250 people, if I volunteer at the temple, I've never tasted my food. So it's like as you're looking at it, you know whether that has less salt or that has less whatever. So you kind of do it by intuition and hoping that it's going to be good. But so far, people always say it tastes good. But then it just becomes that feeling, right? You just get so connected with your food, it becomes like meditation, or it also becomes like what shall I say? It's a like you're performing in the kitchen, you're in that act of doing things. And since I'm a designer, I feel like it's just like design. You're taking away, you're putting things, you're just like, you're experimenting and exploring. So truly you're right, Alicia. Yeah. Anyone else has any closing thoughts?
I just wanted to quickly mention that I think everyone putting their firsthand precious stories and narratives forward and being able to say it through our lens also helps people kind of decolonize the way they perceive foods from different culture. Food is something that is so open to get generalized by outsider views, or get stereotyped or get judged. And I think providing such an intimate lens to how everyone from this different familial and geographical backgrounds really helps dismantle that misconception.
I mean, talking about cultural appropriation and appreciation through food is also another topic, and a much deeper topic, right? And then so like how do we look at our own ingredients, and then how our own ingredients have been used in other ways, right? So how people share their own stories, or sometimes talk about stories that are agitated or has caused wars. Like I was just watching a documentary yesterday and talking about black pepper and how people invaded. There was so many invasions that happened just because of black pepper back home in India. And those kind of stories in terms of colonization and whatnot. But thank you, Idil, for bringing that up. Jen, any last words you want to share?
Oh, I'm just kind of echoing everybody, but I really enjoyed learning the stories behind everyone's pieces, and actually seeing the pieces at the opening was really special. And I think that this is a very special show, and I think that being able to like share stories and be very open and vulnerable about the histories and all of our thoughts about food and how it connects to culture on a bigger level is it's just it's a really nice experience, and it's nice to be a part of this talk as well.
Thank you, Jen. How we pay respects to our ancestors. I think in so many of our cultures, we do that too, and we do that through food. So thank you, Jen. And again, thank you so much for sharing your deeper engagement and personal narratives. It was truly joyful. And then I learned so much from you all. And I'm so honored to be with you all this afternoon. Thank you, Marissa from Women's Meet Gallery, for coordinating this Zoom meeting and bringing us all together, and all of the folks at the gallery for their immense support. Like each person in the gallery is super amazing. Really, thank you so much. And a special thanks to Biara for her generous support, for inviting me and honoring me so I could meet all of these amazing, wonderful folks. So thank you.
Yes, on behalf of the gallery and just myself, because I've been enjoying all the conversations, I just want to say a big, big thank you for your submissions, for your exhibition, for your installation, and for, you know, putting yourselves on the line and putting your stories out there to be shared, to be heard, and to be honored. And I didn't say my food story, so I have a quick one. It's super quick, but in honoring the ancestors, my grandmother passed last year, October, and every Sunday, we're a Black Baptist family, Southern Virginia, so steak and gravy every morning with biscuits. Not every morning, on Sunday mornings before church. And you know, once she got older, you know, my aunt started making it. It was really good, but it just never tasted the same. You know, my mom would make it. I attempted, just never tasted the same. And, you know, after her passing at her funeral, the one thing I brought up is, you know, her steak and biscuits. So I'm not a visual artist, but if I could, there would be some steak and biscuits behind me. So I want to say thank you, Archana, one more time for putting together such an amazing show, for sparring these conversations, for the amazing chat at the opening. I encourage you and any other watchers, when this is chopped and screwed all across our social medias, to follow us on our social medias at Woman Made on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as check out our website at womanmade.org. And we're always available at our Pilsen location, not Pilsen. We have now moved to University Village. We're open Thursday through Sunday, 12 to 5 at 1332 South Halsted. So I'll be seeing you soon, and I'll stop recording here.